Hello, everybody, and welcome to my video today here on YouTube and over on my website. I did something really fun today and I threw it all the way back. I did something very old school and I got my Cricut out. So let's dive in. I'm going to make a card, but this was also the reason I got my Cricut out to begin with is because I needed a snowman for a scrapbooking layout that I did. And you saw that on Friday when I was making those scrapbook pages and I needed a snowman. So I pulled my Cricut out. So I thought, well, while I have it out, I think I'm going to make a card. And it is inspired by Cathy Zielske. And I'm going to there will be a photo up here on the screen. And I'm going to show you the photo that inspired me. Cathy Zielske, I've known her for years. She's been around in the scrapbooking world for years and years and recently started doing scrapbooking or card making. She did scrapbooking and then she got into card making. And I love her cards because they are clean and simple. There's a lot of white space to them. And this card inspired me. And I did not have a snowman die that was big enough to create the kind of card that she created. So what you just saw there is I was going to use my mini to do a embossing folder, but I just kept not getting the right plates and I got frustrated. So I just went over to my normal size embossing machine and I did this with a snowflake embossing folder, and it was just a normal size one. I'm really terrible with my embossing machines. I get my plates all mixed up, and I currently lost one of my plates for my big embossing machine. It's here somewhere. I don't know where it went. And so I just took that to my big machine and I did it. And then because I had trimmed it down thinking I would put it in my mini, I decided to go ahead and add some Highland Heather cardstock right behind this white cardstock. So the white cardstock is cut at 3 3/4 by 5. And I'm sorry about the shaking. I forgot to edit that part out. I meant to edit the shaking out there. So I'm sorry about that. So that is the white layer, and then the Highland Heather layer is just 5 1/4 by 4 inches. And that was just because I trimmed that white piece down to go in the mini machine, and then I didn't use it in the mini machine. So it just has those star flakes, those snowflakes on it. And in my mind, I'm thinking I'll do something to either make them shimmery or I'll do a little bit of inking so they'll stand out. They're not standing out as much as I would like them to. So I'm going to add some foam to this layer. This is going to be our card front, and then I'm going to put the snowman together. So I'm really excited to do this. I've been wanting to use my Cricut more. I just keep thinking, particularly as I'm just trying to figure out more how to use the supplies that I have and use the dies I have or the die cut machines. I have these die cut machines that have all of these images on them and I don't use them anymore. And so it's an original Cricut. It's my Cricut. I think it is the Expression. So it's really old school. It's one of the first Cricuts I had. I have some of the newer ones. I just get frustrated trying to figure out how to do it on the computer. Like, I adore just having cartridges and being able to stick a cartridge in a machine, cut a die cut, and be done. And I spent an entire day trying to figure out how to get a snowman cut using my new Cricut and to get all the layers like I used to do, like old school Cricut cutting. And I just got frustrated and I was like, this is such a waste of time. So unfortunately, my friend that always helps me with that kind of stuff is not available right now. So I just got my old Cricut down and I cut this snowman out. I cut him at 4 1/2 inches. I cut him from the Christmas cheer cartridge. And then I'm just going to do some stuff to spruce him up. So I'm going to do some paper layering, and you see that I have that all sitting right there. But the great thing about this, using my Cricut and doing this, back in the day when I first got my Cricut, I didn't have nearly as many tools and different things that I have now. I didn't have all these stamp pads and blend markers and all of these embellishments and cardstock and ribbon that all matched. When I first got my Cricut, I was really just starting out and I didn't have all that much. So when I was doing this, I was thinking how cool it is that I just have access now to so many different things and I can make these die cuts so cool. So I got out my sponge daubers and I'm adding a little bit of shading with Pool Party to all of the edges of the snowman. I wanted it to stand out a little bit. I'm going to be layering the snowman onto a white background. So what I wanted was just a little bit of shading. I did that with Pool Party ink. My Pool Party ink pad is very dry. So I was having a bit of a time shading it. I didn't want to re-ink it because then I didn't want it to be too juicy and then have a lot of dark blue all around that snowman. I wanted it to be a little bit lighter. So I just worked with it. And currently I'm off screen and I'm back at my big embossing machine and I'm embossing the scarf with another embossing folder. And again, I just forgot to edit that part out. I'm new to doing these voiceovers. so just hang in there with me and I'll get better at it. So then I'm going to take some Highland Heather ink here and I'm just going to ink the edges. Now, a fun fact, the entire reason I found Stampin' Up! Is because I did this kind of stuff. I was using my Cricut and I was doing these die cuts and I wanted ink pads that were really good quality that I could re-ink. And so I called up a demonstrator and just said, would you come to a party and like, can I see the product? And I had never made a card in my life. And so she did. It was really awesome. We made some cards and I just fell in love with the product. I just love that I can get a purple ink pad and purple cardstock that all matches. I'm ecstatic it can ship right to my house. I live in the middle of nowhere, so getting to a store is not easy. My nearest craft store is an hour away. And I love that I can just have everything shipped to my house and everything matches and like that's the end of it, right? So I love that part of being involved with Stampin' Up. And so that's just Highland Heather cardstock, and then I inked it, and you see that I embossed it. So now I'm going to put all of these pieces together, and I'm rusty with these Cricut cartridges and these die cuts. I put the hat on backwards, so I'm just going to flip that around. It's totally fine. It totally worked. No worries. I cut this, I cut it 3 times because I'm going to put one on the scrapbook page as well. And you will see that maybe next week. I didn't include it in this video because I wasn't done with it, but I will show you how that turned out. So now this is a little trick. I'm taking my black marker and because that's layered on white cardstock, I'm just coloring in the edges. So it's a little bit more seamless. You got to be careful. I touched my snowman's head a little bit, but nobody will ever notice. So I outlined the hat, and then later on, I will also outline the arms. And then I also took a bone folder and I pressed down on the face where all of those little cuts are. Those are for like his eyes and his nose and his mouth. And I didn't use the die cut for his nose. You're going to see that I just use my blends for his nose, and then I'm going to put googly eyes on for his eyes, and then I have some embellishments for the buttons down the front of him. Now the googly eyes I used were a little bit big. I have even smaller googly eyes than this. Again, sorry for the shaking. I forgot to edit this part out. I have to remember to go back and edit some of this. When I turn my camera on and off, it shakes. So I'll try to remember to do that next time. So here I'm going to go ahead and color the nose. I didn't feel like cutting it out this little nose on orange cardstock, and I knew I had my blends. So I just did a quick coloring with my light, and then I came in with my dark, and then I came back in with my light to just give it a little bit of texture. It bled a little bit because that's what blends do. They really soak into that paper. And so I went a little bit outside the line. So I just took my white gel pen and I cleaned that up. Again, nobody is going to notice. And that's a really easy way to clean up. Even when you're just coloring a stamped image, you can do that. That white gel pen is a great tool. So I'm adding my googly eyes again. I wish I would have used my really teeny tiny ones. I thought those were my tiny ones. And then later I realized I had ones even smaller. So it worked out fine. They go on there perfectly. And then now I'm just looking for some embellishments. I knew I had something that I could use for the buttons and then also for his mouth. So I'm using these. Now, these are a little bit chunky. So on a card, it definitely is going to be a little bit chunky. I use these on cards. I mean, these are from Stampin' Up and they're meant for cards, I guess, but they are a bit chunky. I just, noticed. So I put those down the middle and then I used the smaller ones for his mouth and they are a little bit big, but I didn't really have anything else that I thought would work that would be small enough. I could have just done some dots on his mouth. That would have worked too. But this worked out. And again, I had a lot of fun using this die cut and getting back to this. And I thought it's going to take me a minute to remember how to do all of this and have things be a little bit cleaner. So I'm just going to do his arms in black. I know I could have done them in brown, but this was an image that the cartridge cut out his arms, the hat, the nose, and the scarf all in one cut. Those weren't separate. If you're familiar with Cricut, you know some of the cuts you can do individually, and then some are grouped together. Again, probably if I was doing this on the computer, I could have ungrouped them and did that whole thing, but I literally just cannot figure out how to do it. And so I just didn't want to cut, the scarf and the nose and the arms just to get them brown. So I'm just going to do them black. I did them black on both of the snowman that I did, and it worked out fine. So I'm coming back again with a little bit more blue because I do want it to be a little tiny bit more shaded. When you're shading anything white, you want to use blue or gray, and I felt like gray would be too dark, and I'm really glad I went with the pool party. I think that it will be much better. And then again, some shaking. And then I'm just taking that dauber with the blue ink, and I'm just going to go ahead and run it over those snowflakes just so they'll pop out a little bit more. This certainly isn't a very deep embossing folder, and so I really want those snowflakes to pop out. So I hope you're enjoying these kinds of videos. I'm trying to do this more where I'm doing some old school crafting and going through all the steps and hanging out a little bit more in the video. I'm really enjoying it. And don't forget, if you place an order with me for Stampin' Up! Products this month, you will get a set of embellishments from me, and then you will get the online class that I'm offering that features the scrapbook pages that I'm talking about with the other snowman on it. And then it also features several different cards, some fancy fold cards, pretty packaging. It is my Blessed to Craft monthly online class. And that information can be found on my website if you are interested in it. But when you place a $40 order, you will get all of the digital items for that class for free, plus a set of embellishments. So here I'm just getting ready to put the snowman on, and I really love the way this little guy came out. It's a little bit larger than the one that Cathy did on her card when I showed you her card at the very beginning of the video. It's a little bit larger because it's just a different type of stamp of snowman. Mine is like a full snowman, and hers was just like the top of a snowman, I think. So, it is a little bit bigger on the card. I could have done the snowman slightly smaller. That probably would have worked too. So I took this stamp set from Stampin' Up, and the sentiment says, "Love you so much." I'm going to use black ink to just pull in a little bit of the black from the hat and the arms and then the embellishments on it. I'm going to stamp it at the bottom of this Highland Heather cardstock. I'm sorry, my head gets in the way a tiny, tiny bit, but I just stamped it very, very close to the edge. And then I'm going to get out my mini trimmer. That's going to make it easier for me to trim that really close. And originally, I was going to do this wonky cut on each end. And then I realized my black ink, I made a little bit of a mistake. So unfortunately, now I'm going to flag that sentiment, and it's really close to the sentiment. So it ends up being okay. So now it looks a little funny to me because I was going to do something different and that didn't work out. So what I decided to do is add a snowflake on here. But first, I'm going to put the sentiment down, and I'm just putting that right over the snowman. You can see a little bit of that pool party shading, and it makes me so happy. So this says, "Love you so much." And then I'm going to go grab an old school punch. You guys, I am throwing it all the way back to my beginning crafting days and beginning time on YouTube. And I'm pulling out some white glimmer paper. And then this is an old school punch. It is from Martha Stewart. It is a snowflake punch. And I'm going to add that right to the snowman. And so one of the reasons I loved this punch so much is because a dimensional fits perfectly on the back of it. So I'm going to do that and pop it up. And that is the card. I loved doing this. I hope you loved the colors, and I hope you enjoyed the card. Leave me a comment below and let me know if you have a Cricut machine or die cutting machine of any kind, a silhouette, or anything like that. And let me know in the comments. I loved putting this together for you, and I will be back later this week. On the screen here, you will see two other of my most recent videos. I hope you will check those out. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will catch you in my next video.